Glinka and the cultural quest for Russia. Mikhail Glinka was born in 1804 to a wealthy, highly cultured landowning family. As a child, he studied piano and violin and received a first-rate education, after which he did what all young men of his class did, which was to take a cushy civil service job. In Glinka's case, he became assistant secretary of the Department of Public Highways. It was a do-next-to-nothing post, one that allowed Glinka lots of time to indulge his musical interests, playing piano and composing drawing room music for the amusement of his high society St. Petersburg friends. And then something in Glinka clicked. Tired of his slacker existence, Glinka, already in his mid-20s, decided that he really wanted to be a real composer. His family was against it, but in 1830, at the age of 26, Glinka left home. 3 years in Italy, including a stay at the Milan Conservatory, were followed by a year of intense study in Berlin. Glinka learned his lessons well. When he returned to St. Petersburg in 1834, he was determined to compose an opera that would be recognizably, authentically Russian. On his return to St. Petersburg, Glinka got involved in a high-end salon run by the imperial court poet Vasily Andreevich Zhukovsky, who lived from 1783 to 1852. Zhukovsky is credited with having introduced romantic poetry to Russia, and his many translations of English, German, and even ancient Greek poetry into Russian are still considered classics. He was also a major player at court. He was the tutor of Grand Duchess, meaning princess, Alexandra Feodorovna, and later her son, the future Tsar Alexander II. It was through Zhukovsky that Glinka met a group of artists who were in the process of putting Russian literature and art on the international map. Glinka recalled these evenings, quote, "I continued to visit Zhukovsky in the evenings. He was living at the Winter Palace, and each week a select group consisting of poets, writers, and people interested in the finer things gathered there. To mention a few, Alexander Pushkin, Nikolai Gogol, and the poet and critic Peter Pletnev. Various others turned up as well. Sometimes, instead of reading, there would be singing and piano playing. When I mentioned my desire to undertake a Russian opera, Zhukovsky wholeheartedly approved my intention and suggested a subject: Ivan Susanin." Oh my goodness, it was a great idea. The story resonated with Glinka for two huge reasons. First, it was about the unswerving willingness of Ivan Susanin, a Russian everyman, to sacrifice everything for his Tsar, who was, after all, the embodiment of the Russian state. Second, it was about fighting off foreign invaders, the great bugaboo of the Russian mind. These two themes of unswerving loyalty in the face of a foreign threat were as contemporary to Glinka as they were in 1613, when the events depicted in the opera presumably took place. A Life for the Tsar received its premiere in St. Petersburg at the Bolshoi Theater on Friday, November 27th, 1836, with the imperial family in attendance. The premiere was a triumph. Glinka remembered, quote, "The success of the opera was complete. I was in a daze. I was called to the imperial box. The Tsar, Nicholas I, thanked me for my opera. After he had thanked me, the Tsarina did so too, and then all the Grand Dukes and Grand Duchesses. I soon received an imperial gift for my opera, a 4,000 ruble ring made up of topaz encircled by 3 rows of the finest diamonds. I gave it to my wife at once," unquote. Good boy. Glinka's working title for the opera had been Ivan Susanin. However, before the premiere, he changed the title to A Life for the Tsar in order to be allowed to dedicate the opera to Nicholas I. Glinka's reward for the dedication was that wonderful ring. A Life for the Tsar was not just a triumph for Glinka. It was a triumph for Russian art and culture taken as widely as we please. It was embraced as the first great Russian musical work. It was the first Russian opera to be known outside of Russia. Following its premiere in 1836, A Life for the Tsar opened every opera season in St. Petersburg and Moscow until 1917, the year of the Russian Revolution.